Hello and welcome back to the third episode of the Veganless podcast. Today we have Kyle Douglas on board. I will let you give a little intro about yourself.
Oh, I'm nothing too crazy. Just a guy that likes to shoot a bow, I guess. But yeah, I shoot professionally, so I do that full time. And then I have an archery shop as well. So I do a bunch of traveling and shooting all over the U.S. and kind of all over the world too. So it's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, to say that you're just a guy that likes shooting archery might add quite well, right?
Yeah.
Depends on the day, huh?
Hmm.
So, as I kind of told you beforehand, I feel like everyone that has the chance to speak with you kind of drives in on the competitive archery side. But I think you have enjoyments outside of that, right? So, let's talk hunting. Let's dive right
Yeah,
in.
I'm all about hunting.
And I think this will be a fun topic for me as well, because I think we have vastly different hunting available for us, you being more towards the West, right?
Yeah.
So, you do also do some traveled hunts, though, as well. So, what would you say your favorite hunt has been if you had to pick one?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I always like hunting elk. That's my big one. Um, Probably my elk tag. I drew a good tag here in Utah in 2022. That was probably one of my favorite hunts I've done.
So, as a resident, you guys still have to draw tags in Utah?
We've got both. So we got like the limited entry or for the like the good like the draw tags or whatever.
Oh,
And then we
okay.
also have like a general season over the counter.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
we do get a hunt every year. Archery's unlimited, so
Mhm.
that's cool. But it's really tough hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Elk is probably the number one thing on my bucket list right now. I obviously have no opportunity to do that in Iowa.
Hmm.
I started building points for Wyoming, but that'll be probably 6 or 7 years before I get drawn for that. So I'm thinking about trying an over the counter Colorado experience in between now and then. So see how that
Yeah,
goes.
Colorado is one that a lot of people go to just because you can buy a
Hmm.
tag over the counter and just
Yeah,
open
there's
it up.
zones that you can. So
Hmm.
like even if you don't luck out and find something, you at least get out there, get the experience, and
Yeah, and it'll take a while. If you've never hunted elk before, it'll definitely take you a minute to get it figured out. It's not
Mhm.
something that most people pick up the first time and go
Yeah,
with.
and there's quite a difference in terrain too, as you saw in your visit to Iowa recently. It's
Oh, yeah.
pretty much cornfields, right? So
Uh-huh.
if I always kind of like leading with, do you have one piece of advice you'd give a new hunter? Because I'm all about giving back to new hunters.
Um, God, I don't know. That's a tough one. I would say, find a good mentor, I guess, whether that's somebody in your family or your dad or grandpa or whoever got you started or just a friend or something. Um, to kind of get you up and going because you can learn so much in such a short amount of time with somebody that knows what they're doing versus trying to learn everything on your own and just make a bunch of little mistakes that you wouldn't otherwise if you had somebody kind of showing you how
Yeah.
to do things and kind of getting you up and running. So I think that can shave off a huge amount of time on the learning curve.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that because there's so much to learn. Even the knowledgeable guys learn something new every season.
Hmm.
So if you don't have a resource like that, I think there's a lot of great YouTube channels out there. Now you kind of take that with a grain of salt because just as much good info out there, there's bad info. So do
Yeah.
your research, but I always think that's a great tool. Big on having different tools for the toolbox, As we mentioned last week, get out there and scout. Boots on the ground is huge. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, that was an awesome piece of advice. And then, given your nature, do you have any piece of advice for a new competitive archery shooter?
Kind of similar there too. There's a lot of people that you mean you can get a lot of stuff online, but there's a lot of people that'll dive too deep into that and listen to like 10,000 different people doing it different ways and this and that. So if you can find one person that you really like, whether that's somebody you know or a coach or somebody online, try and follow what they do. and just listen to that one person until you kind of know, what's right
Kind
and
of
what's
get the
wrong.
great leg work in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once you kind of get a baseline going, then you can kind of decide for yourself. But that, and then as far as like the also on the like the competitive archery side, a big one for me is dedication. It's not something that you're going to be good at if you spend 1 day a week doing it for an hour. It's just not how it works. So you kind of get out of archery what you put into it. So the more work and dedication you put into that, the more results you're going to see because of that.
Yeah, I saw a good quote recently, and I don't remember the exact quote, but the basis of it is, there's motivation and there's dedication and just kind of persistence. So everything's easy when you're motivated. Like everything's gonna blast, it's fun, it's easy.
Mhm.
But those times that you plateau or things are tough, it's you being persistent and pushing through that makes you pull through and be a better archer or
Right.
whatever you're trying to do for that matter.
Hmm.
Someone from Facebook, it's not showing me the name. Oh, there it is. Alan was curious if you punch the trigger when you're shooting game too.
Always.
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 All we do is punch, right? See, everyone gives me a hard time for punching. What's up with that?
It's got to be controlled. That's the big thing for me. Most people don't have the mental capacity to do that and keep it under control. But if you do, it can be very effective.
Is there anything you did to try to hone that in, since that's kind of against the grain, I would say, of how a lot of people think you should shoot?
Yeah, definitely. So starting out, as a kid and stuff, that's how I always shot. I just shot index finger. I didn't know any different. I just pulled the trigger when the pin was in the middle. And then getting into like the target archery side of things, that's where I learned to shoot back tension. I picked up like a pull through back tension release to start out with and kind of teach me how to shoot like that.
Hmm.
Then rolled that over into a hinge, and I shot a hinge for years. Um, and then usually I would shoot like a hinge indoors and a really heavy button that I would squeeze through
Hmm.
outdoors. And so when I first started like command shooting again, it was almost like my brain didn't know how to punch, so I almost had to like relearn how to touch the trigger off.
Hmm.
And it just clicked all of a sudden one day for me. I was there's a couple local tournaments here in Idaho and Utah, and I missed a point at both tournaments, and it was just driving me crazy. It's like I should not be missing these points. I just get weak or whatever, and have a dip bang, and it would just go right out the bottom on me. And so finally, I got sick of it, and it just clicked. It's like, you know what? If I could shoot when the pin's in the middle, I wouldn't miss. And then also I was like, wait, I can shoot when the pin's in the middle. So that just all of a sudden switched for me, and that's been the way I shoot ever since. But it's just a different challenge mentally, rather than fighting not holding steady or fighting dip bangs and stuff like that. You just
Hmm.
fight more of like anticipation or making sure that you're patient enough with the shot and stuff like that. So it's just different demons you're fighting. No matter what way you shoot, you're always going to be struggling with something.
Hmm.
For me, I
So
feel
it's
like I want to have control over my shot. If
yeah,
I don't hit where I'm supposed to hit, it's because I didn't do something right. Where like with a hinge, it's like, oh, well, I just had a bobble or whatever, or something like that. I don't want those kind of
right.
excuses. I want to know that it's my fault when I miss, so I know I can fix that.
Hmm. So what you're saying is point at the X and hit it. That's as simple as that, right?
Pretty much, yeah. If you can tone it down that much, yeah, that's really all you got to do.
There we go. So for this year's hunts, do you have any plans yet? I know you said you can hunt yearly. What does a hunting season look like for you? I know crammed between competitive events and such.
Yeah, so like our archery season for us, as far as like tournament archery, typically kind of winds down in August. And then hunting season, for me, hunting season usually opens, depending on what tags I have, but Utah opens like the third weekend in August typically. If I have Nevada, usually it's the weekend before that. But and then hunt most of the fall, and then tournaments will pick back up, late in the fall, maybe November or so.
Hmm.
So I got a good chunk of the fall that I can kind of hunt and stuff, but it really just depends on the year. I usually always have an elk tag in Utah. Usually I'm gonna have a deer tag in Utah, and then I'll try and pick up some out of state tags here and there. I'll hunt Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Nevada, Colorado. All the kind of neighboring states. I'll try and pick
Hmm.
up tags when I can. So I typically have a couple of out of state tags plus my Utah tags to to go after. This year, I'm not sure what we're going to end up with. Um, Kind of depends on what I can draw.
Right. Is there going to be a Kyle Douglas Iowa hunting visit in the future?
I would like that. I've never really hunted whitetails a whole lot. I've chased them around a little bit, but I don't know what I'm doing
Hmm.
to chase them, and it's hard for me to leave. Like if I haven't
Well,
filled my deer
yeah.
tag here, we've got they call it an extended archery season that goes through the end of November. So if I haven't killed my deer here, I have a hard time wanting to leave,
Right.
go chase whitetail somewhere else. But eventually, one year when I have a free week or two in November, I'd love to come out and chase some.
Right. Yeah. And let's see. Let's see, South Dakota, right? You've mule deer hunt there.
Yeah, so I killed a buck in South Dakota this past year. We went out
Hmm.
there on a trip pheasant hunting, and then got to hunt a little bit while we were out there, and I ended up
Okay.
shooting a buck out there. So I was trying to find a whitetail, but there was the whitetails were kind of few and far between. But we found a
Right.
handful full of muleys, so I ended up whacking one of those.
Yeah, a muley I think is on my list. I'm hoping to do the same thing and make a South Dakota trip, hopefully this year.
Uh-huh.
And you said pheasant. Absolutely love pheasant hunting too.
Yeah.
I just picked up a puppy. She turned 7 months old like a week ago, a
Oh,
chocolate lab. So she's going to be the veganless pheasant dog.
nice.
Yep. Um, so you said you hunt your state, neighboring states, kind of in your zone there, which you're a busy guy between archery and you have a shop, right?
Yeah.
So how did the shop kind of get going?
So that kind of started. I was working for another guy in college at his shop that he'd started up, and then that one ended up closing down. And so I was going to school. I just kind of opened up a little deal in my dad's garage, and we just kind of started doing it,
Hmm.
a couple days a week here and there, and started to get a little busier. And then the county that I live in actually built a new indoor range. So they built a 60-yard indoor range. There's like a little vendor area in there, and they asked me to come move my shop into there. So I moved
Oh,
my shop
that's
into
neat.
there, and it's kind of grown ever since then.
There we go. That's pretty neat because then you have traffic from their stuff too,
Yeah,
built in,
it's
and then
awesome. I can't beat the location. I mean, like the size of the shop is teeny tiny,
hmm.
but for the location, we just can't beat it. It's awesome to have that range right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say the range right there alone would be a nice perk for you.
Hmm.
Is you think putting in a 60-yard range of your own that really adds up the real estate. So,
Oh yeah.
so what would one, I guess, memorable moment from your competitive archery be? If there's one that shines out the most, what do you think you would pick?
Probably the first time that I won Vegas would probably be the big one for me. That was a pretty cool experience.
There's not many people that can say they won Vegas at that the first time I won Vegas.
Yeah, yeah, I've been lucky. I got two pro wins under my belt, and then I've also won it once as like a young adult.
Hmm.
I feel pretty fortunate to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah. So, how do you kind of stay on par with your competition and kind of keep pushing forward? Because I'm sure you still have the youth or the new generation coming in of shooter, and as you get older, it is harder to kind of maintain some things. So, just staying in like shape and kind of your mental and all that.
Yeah, so there's always new guys coming in, and the level of competition seems like it's just ever rising. Like it seems like, especially in the last handful of years, it seems like it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. Guys are just shooting so good. The equipment's so good right now. Um, so for me, I push myself not only just to win tournaments, but to kind of hit my own expectations. Like I know what scores I should be shooting and what level I
Hmm.
should be competing at, and if I'm not doing that, I'm not happy. Even if I win a tournament or do good at a tournament, but I don't live up to my own expectations, I'm not
Hmm.
happy with that performance. So that's kind of the way that I try and stay on top of my game, and constantly working at it and just trying to find a better way to do things, or fix little things in form or mental game or whatever it might be that I'm struggling with at the moment. I'm always working on something when I'm practicing. I'm never just shooting to shoot.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Always kind of have some goal and focus on one thing each time you're shooting and on
Hmm.
in. How do you find the time though with a busy shop? Do you shoot before, or after hours, and kind of off days, or?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I get. I don't ever have time to really shoot while the shop's open or anything. So early in the morning before we open or late at night after we close is kind of my practice time, or like
Hmm.
days that we're closed or something like that. Um, is kind of when I have to
Hmm.
shoot.
For a new archer, I know you mentioned get out there and shoot more than one day a week if possible. Do you think there's like a good kind of middle ground there that you should be shooting to improve, but also kind of not overdo it? Because I think rest days are probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, it just kind of depends. I would say, if it's somebody just starting and they're just kind of wanting to have fun and do it, yeah, just go shoot when you can, at least once or twice a week or something. But I would say if you really want to improve, you're going to need at least 3 to 5 days a week, I would say, if you're really wanting to hit it hard, up to 6 or 7 days a week. And it just kind of like for me, it just kind of depends. Typically I'm shooting almost every day. Um,
Hmm.
and the level, like the amount that I shoot or things like that will kind of change depending on what I'm doing. If I feel like I have a setup that's just absolutely dialed, everything is shooting the way I want it to. I'm just perfectly happy with my setup, and I feel like I'm shooting really good. I'll tone it back. I may only shoot for say an hour or so a day. Where if it's like something that I'm trying to build a new setup, or I'm not happy with the way that I'm shooting or something like that, um, I'll stay after it until I get it figured out. Sometimes I'm shooting at the range till 2 in the morning. Sometimes I'm only there for an hour. It really just kind of depends on the day and what I'm working on and what I got to figure out. But if there's a tournament coming up and I'm not happy with the way that I'm shooting, I definitely, kind of all bets are off. I'm there at the range until I get it figured out because I do not want to go to a tournament not feeling like I'm prepared to win that tournament.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. My dog's going nuts over something. Alrighty, so we touched on kind of advice for new archers there, a little bit of hunting. Would you say, kind of going back to hunting, you said elk is kind of your top thing there? Are there any things that you haven't hunted that you want to hunt?
Oh yeah, there's always a list of stuff out there that I've wanted to go chase. In the US, there's a handful of stuff like I've always wanted to go shoot whitetail. I've always wanted to go on like a pig hunt. Um, or even stuff like Alaska stuff, like caribou or bears or sheep are really high on my list. I don't know if I'll ever have a tag for that, but I would
Yeah,
love
that's a tough one to get.
sheep. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I'm game for whatever. There's all kinds of stuff that's on the bucket list for me. Love
Right.
to go to Africa and hunt over there. I'm actually going to New Zealand here this spring, so we'll see if I can't round up something over there.
There you go. You have your eyes set on anything specific, or?
I would love to kill a stag. A red stag has
Yeah.
been
Yeah,
a
that'd be
bucket
awesome.
list hunt since I was a little kid, so we'll see if I can't turn one up. I got a good buddy over there, Riku Van Tonder, that I'm gonna go hunting with, and we'll see what we can't find.
There you go. Good luck on the hunt. You said this spring is that one?
Yeah.
And do you mainly just go hunt to hunt, or do you try to create content with it too, or any plans to kind of build upon more content from you?
That would be cool. In the future, I definitely could see something like that happening. Right now, I just don't. Personally, I suck
Time.
at that kind of stuff. Like if I'm
Hmm.
hunting, I gotta hunt. I can't try and do both. But if I got it worked out to where like I had a cameraman with me or something, that would be
Yeah.
pretty cool to do some stuff and film some hunts to be able to kind of look back at that and see it. Plus, I think there'll be a lot of people that kind of enjoy seeing what I do and stuff. So, yeah, that would be neat in the future to kind of have something like that. But as for right now, I don't have a whole lot of ways to do that. But I'll try and the plan over there is to kind of see what I can do as far as maybe like catching something on video or something. But I doubt if I do it'll be be super high quality or anything. But we can see what.
Right. You hear that guy's potential Kyle Douglas cameraman internship in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started self filming this last year, and it's a different animal. You have to essentially shoot the animal twice. You are trying to keep mind of where you're framed at camera wise, where it's at, and throughout the whole process, you draw, you kind of peek over, make sure the camera is still set, and it adds a lot to it, and then more gear to pack in. And I'd say
Mhm.
most of my weight in gear was camera gear because I really, to offset it, honed in and got the absolute lightest setup that I could get. But yeah, I feel you there. It's a lot of work filming, but even more work than that is editing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. And that, like, if I was whitetail hunting all the time, I think I would definitely get into the filming stuff because,
Hmm.
not like it's easy, but it's easier, I guess, to film yourself when you're like in a tree stand and you're kind of stationary.
Yeah,
Or like when you're running a gun and spot and stock and stuff, it's so hard to, carry a tripod with you or something and try and set that up. So,
yeah,
uh,
you
if
definitely need a
you
second person.
get started and get into it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've been kind of, when I have buddies available, trying to get more into the spot and stock because it's just sitting in a stand's cool, and like I love it, but there's just something about being on the ground at eye level and outsmarting the animal and making things work. Just I feel like the adrenaline is there for both the person and the viewer. Like
Hmm.
it, like watching, say, Levi Morgan stuff, like they have phenomenal content of the hunts. It's ground level over the shoulder, and definitely want to kind of get more towards that as I have more help with camera gear.
Yeah, those guys do a really good job. I think Micah films a lot of stuff for him
Yeah.
and produces. I know he's got a couple other cameramans, but
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
Micah does awesome work.
they do some awesome stuff.
Yeah. So that actually brought up a fun point. Would you say most of your stuff is spot and stock, or do you have any different type of hunting that you do?
Yeah, pretty much most of what I do is all going to be spot and stock stuff. I don't really have. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have anywhere right now that I really sit. Everything's just kind of run and gun, and you know, especially like deer. A lot of times, deer you're going to bed them down and then kind of
Hmm.
try and hunt more open kind of country or high country type of stuff where I can watch where they bed and then put a stalk on
Hmm.
them from the stand.
Right.
Um, elk, I kind of do a little bit of both. If it's in country that I can stalk, I'll do a little stalking, like early season or something like that.
Hmm.
And then once they get rutting, you're either trying to call them in, or if they're bugling up on their own, sometimes I'll just kind of shut up and just let them tell me where they're at. Uh,
Hmm.
kind of play it that way. But yeah, a lot of spotting and stalking and running a gun and calling in and stuff like that. That's kind of what I enjoy.
Hmm. Yeah, asking for myself, what are some tips for elk hunting?
Um, God, I don't know. It totally depends on what time of year and where you're at. Different places are all different. But I would say like a big one is, kind of figuring out, and it takes a lot of experience, but figuring out when to be aggressive and when to be more patient is
Hmm.
kind of a big one for me. Like a lot of times when I first started, I was not aggressive enough.
Hmm.
There was a lot of opportunities looking back that I missed that I could have taken advantage of. Like say a bull's raking a tree or something like that. I mean, you just want to
Hmm.
get around as quickly as you can to get up on them. And I remember like when I was younger, just kind of learning stuff. I'd see a bull raking and be like kind of trying to sneak over there and stuff where he couldn't see me. Is when their heads thrash around like that, they don't know what's going on.
Hmm.
Just try and get up there, or different stuff with like calling in that, and knowing kind of like taking the bull's temperature and kind of seeing, whether he's super fired up, whether he just kind of lays
Hmm.
out of his bed, or like what's going on. Um, and you just kind of learn the behavior of the elk in that area, and also learning like what the people are doing too, and trying to kind of work around that, whether you're hunting like super high pressured elk or whether you're hunting elk that don't hardly see people. That can make a big difference in the way I
Hmm.
hunt them and kind of how I go about things. But um, yeah, a lot of it's just kind of boots on the ground, and figuring out stuff like that. There's a lot of resources out there too, as far as learning how to call elk and stuff like that. And that can be a big deal. But sometimes anymore, it seems like It kind of depends on the area, but there definitely are some places to me that I feel like the elk are just so high pressured.
Hmm.
I just throw the calls out the window and just kind of try and
Find them.
yeah, try and cut them off as they're coming through saddles or drainages or whatever, or
Hmm.
trying to stalk them if I can catch them bedded, or just let them get bugling enough on their own that I can tell where they're at.
Hmm.
Because there's definitely been times where I've tried to call in elk that they've been educated before, and they'll hear something, and they can tell instantly if something's
Hmm.
not right with that call, and they'll pick up and turn the other way faster than you can blink. It's
Right.
kind of crazy what they do once they've been educated a few times.
Yeah, I think the getting aggressive part is a good one because I feel like I'm too patient sometimes. I feel like with a lot of my stuff, every time I go to kind of push and rush, I think I would have had a better off like by just waiting longer. So I've gotten pretty good with being patient, but that's also kind of bit me in the ass too at the same time. So finding that balance I think is big.
Yeah, and you'll find that with like all the different stuff you hunt. There's times you need to make a move, and other times you need to wait them out.
Right. So do you kind of adopt the same strategy with your muleys and such?
Yeah, deer are a totally different animal though. And to me, I try and pick areas to hunt kind of a little bit based off the terrain, a little bit based off of the animals. But I try and hunt more open stuff where I can watch them bed. And it's a totally
Hmm.
different because I'm watching them bed and then I'm putting a stalk on them. I'm not trying to call them in or hunt them while they're on their feet typically. So it's a little bit different game to where, as long as the wind's right, and as long as the terrain works out to where I can put a good stock on them, it's a lot different deal. And to me, I can watch a buck bed and I can tell you whether or not I have like a high percentage stock opportunity, kind of
Hmm.
by where he beds, it, and I'll kind of base some decisions off that. Now, if I'm hunting in like a super high pressure area where I know like if I don't kill this buck today, somebody else is either going to shoot him or try and shoot him tomorrow. I may get a little bit more aggressive with like which stocks I take.
Hmm.
Maybe take
Get a
some
little
take
riskier.
little bit lower percentage than I normally would. Or if it's
Hmm.
something I know I have that deer all to myself, I may not put a stock on him that day if he doesn't bed in a spot that I think I can kill him. I may wait for the next day to hopefully find him in a better bed or something like that.
Hmm. I know this absolutely varies per where you're at, but what's your confidence level range wise on, say, like an elk being one of the top modern archers?
Too far.
Yeah,
I'm
too far.
yeah, I've shot a few things probably way farther than I should have. Um, but it all just depends on skill level, and it also depends
Hmm.
on like how well I feel I'm shooting and what the conditions are. If there's something um, like pretty flat ground, no wind, everything's calm. I'm definitely not afraid to shoot out into the triple digits, no problem.
Hmm.
But if it's like crazy windy or weird stuff going on, I'll just dial it back, kind of depending on the conditions. But
Right.
you know, I it just kind of depends on I take every situation differently and how confident I am in that, and also how good is my
Hmm.
bow shooting and stuff. If I'm shooting softball sized groups at 120 yards, and an elk walks out at 90, I'm not even going to hesitate. Um,
Hmm.
so
Do you actively practice out to that range just so you're prepared in case the need arises? Or
yeah, so I'm sighted in as far as I can sight in until my arrow starts hitting my sight housing, until my veins start hitting the bottom of my sight housing. Typically, I'm not going to shoot that far on like a first shot, but I'm always dialed in for follow up shots and stuff. If I,
Mhm.
obviously the goal is to get as close as I can. But say I plug one at 40 and he runs out to 130 and stops again after I've already got one in. I'm dang sure going to be trying to hit him a second time.
Yeah,
At
just
that
to seal the deal.
yeah, any more hole, it doesn't even matter where it's at, I guess. If you already got one good shot in, and more holes the better at that point. Obviously, a better shot is best, but all
Yeah, you want to be ethical as possible. So I think you kind of owe it to do your best to make sure that that animal is harvested quickly.
uh-huh.
And
Yeah, I remember like back when I was getting started and stuff, I always had just a 5 pin fixed pin sight. I didn't run a slider, nothing.
Mhm.
I didn't want to tempt myself to shoot too far. I
Right.
shoot past 60. Um, and looking back, it's probably a good thing in some situations where I didn't try and shoot past what I thought I should. But at the same time, I like having that option for a follow up shot. Even if I'm not confident shooting past 50
Hmm.
on a first shot, but if I have a follow up shot, it don't matter how far I need to shoot. I'm taking that shot if I got a sight that goes that far.
Right. Yes, we are live. So if any of you have questions, feel free to ask away. But yeah, I think it's good to practice farther than you're going to shoot, and absolutely only take what you're comfortable with. And honestly, I'd even say, obviously, you base this on your skill level, but I would take shots under kind of where your comfort level is, if possible. So,
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, and everybody, when they're practicing, it's on flat ground.
no
Typically,
adrenaline.
and they're calm. That's a totally different situation than when you're hunting. When you're hunting, your adrenaline's going, your heart rate's up. Everything is totally different. So you kind of got to account for that kind of stuff. And to me, I tell a lot of guys, if you can take like a small paper plate and pin that up, and you're willing to bet me $500 that on the first arrow you're going to hit that plate, you're probably good to shoot at that distance. But if you're scared to bet me that, maybe you should dial back what your max distance is.
Right. Yeah, I could agree with that. There's, I think, a lot of people that they're just, slinging arrows. They're like, I see it, man. I'm going to do that. Like, don't. Just practice, practice more than you think you need to practice. And just try to make solid shots because you owe it to that animal to be the most ethical and quick harvest as possible.
Uh-huh.
All right, we had a lot of good info there with kind of the spot and stock and west hunting. What does your kind of toolkit for hunting look like? I assume, are you going to be hunting with a lift this year?
Yeah, so I actually got hunt a little bit last year with the lift as well towards the end of the season.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'm gonna be running the lift 33 this year. I've been super happy with the way that bow's been shooting. Um, so yeah, we'll see what we can turn up.
You're going to be the first follower on Kick. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. So yeah, what's the rest? I know it kind of depends on what you're hunting and where you're at. Say like an elk hunt, what does your kit look like that you take with you? Like what do you bring? Are you out there for days at a time? Are you out there for a day or like what's your
Um,
gear bag?
yeah, that'll totally depend on what hunt I'm going on and where we're at. Sometimes it may be day hunts where I'm back to camp in the middle of the day.
Hmm.
At that point, it's definitely gonna be dialed down. I just kind of like my regular gear in my pack, clothes and, extra stuff, extra releases, wind
Hmm.
checker if I'm out hunting out, calls and stuff like that. Um, I might have like some stockisons or something with me, or some extra wool socks if I'm stalking deer. I always have some sort of survival stuff, matches, lighter, flashlights, headlamps, uh,
Hmm.
extra batteries, iodine tablets, all that kind of stuff kind of comes with me. But then you start, I'll do like backpacking stuff, which is totally different. You got to take
Hmm.
your sleeping system with you, and food and water. And then I do a lot of hunting off horses too, and then that adds a whole different animal as far as what
Hmm.
you pack and bring and stuff like that. And it also lets you bring more, typically,
Right.
because a little bit more weight you can take.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I haven't done. That sounds like a fun hunt.
So yeah, I try not to shoot elk where I can't get a horse to them because they're not very fun to pack.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to have
But
yeah, packing those out isn't fun. And then what kind of nuisances do you deal with in your area? Do you guys have like bears and other game that you kind of need to get the elk out or at least put
um,
up safely or
it just kind of depends. Like here in Utah, it's not too big of a problem
Mhm.
typically. There's a few bears around depending on where you're at and stuff. There are some places that get pretty heavy with bears, but they're all just black bears, so it's not like that big of a deal. I
Mhm.
don't worry about those at all. They got coyotes and lions and stuff like that, and nothing ever to really worry about. But I do
Mhm.
have places, like in Wyoming and stuff, that there's grizzlies, and that kind of adds a whole different element,
Right.
to the hunt, and then you got to pack some bear spray or a gun or something like
Mhm.
that. It just seems like you're always just kind of looking over your shoulder when you're in bear country. Just
Yeah.
you can't ever quite get rid of that extra edge that it gives you.
Right. That was another kind of I guess factor to wanting to go out there. It's just like It just seems like you go out there and come back a man, right? Like, um, it's just like you get to go out and reconnect with like the world in its natural state. Like,
Hmm.
you're not, I mean, you're the top of the food chain, but like, you're not sitting in the house safe, right? Like, pay attention and,
Oh yeah, it yeah, especially in grizzly country. I mean,
hmm
yeah, nothing ever really bothers me too much as far as predators and stuff like that, except for the grizzlies. And they don't bother me all that much, but it
hmm
definitely just puts you a little bit. You're a little more aware, I guess,
on
when you're
alert.
in country, and you can't be so just lackadaisical about the decisions you make and stuff. You shoot one at
hmm
night, and that adds a whole different element when you're
hmm
out bears. So you just try to be a little smarter with what you do and stuff like that. Kind of think things through before you do it. Um, and you try to hunt with somebody else if you can, uh,
Yeah.
and that really kind of helps things along too. And there has been times where I'll hunt by myself in grizzly country, and that's not the
hmm
most fun, but you can do it. It's just probably not the very smartest thing to do.
Right. Robert says hunting out west is a dream for most guys. Robert's actually the one that's going out west with me to Wyoming. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, that's a big bucket list for us. And it's kind of funny how that works too, because like you're out there and that's a dream for a lot of hunters. But we're here in Iowa, which is also a dream for a lot of hunters because of how hard it is to get in as a non resident to hunt here. So
Hmm.
it's fun seeing the different perspectives of different types of hunting and such.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm pretty lucky to kind of live where I live and be
Mhm.
able to grow up out here and learn to do it.
Yeah. What? How old were you when you got your first elk?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Probably 14 or so, I would imagine. I can't remember for sure, but I think that's about how old I was.
I bet you remember the experience though.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was awesome. I actually shot him with a rifle, but
Yeah.
that was a cool hunt. I was up there hunting with my dad, and everybody was up there, like my grandpa and my uncle, and everybody had tags that year. Um, and yeah, I actually ended up shooting that bull. There was a grizzly that liked to live in that drainage, and she kind of liked to live
Mhm.
on like one main ridge. She'd kind of branch out, and you see her all over, but she kind of had like her home turf there. And I ended up killing that bull right on the ridge that she likes to live on, right at dark, and it was like 7 miles
Oh
from the.
boy.
So it was that was pretty crazy. We ended up having to leave it overnight and come
hmm
back the next day and make sure no bears had got on it and stuff before we hauled
hmm
it out there.
Yeah, that's adds a whole nother twist to it because here in Iowa we really like don't have much predator. We have your coyotes, we have bobcats, and there's some mountain lions around, but other than that, it's relatively safe. So, biggest worry is leaving a deer overnight and coming back to the coyotes having started chewing on it.
Yeah.
Let's see. No more questions yet. Feel free to ask away if you have any. As mentioned, we are live. So, I've had a few questions if we were actually live, if we were just playing it back. Let's see. Do you hunt any smaller game like turkey or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll usually pick up a turkey tag every year here in Utah. I don't think I've ever done any out of state stuff as far as that goes. But I like chasing them around. It's something kind of in the off season to
hmm
go hunt and have fun. And then I'll do some bird hunting and stuff like that here and there too.
Yeah. So, you said you pheasant hunt. When did you kind of get into that?
I kind of grew up pheasant hunting. My dad always had bird dogs growing up, and then when I started to get old enough to hunt, um, we got some. And well, I guess I had a lab when I was a kid, all growing up, and then
hmm
we got some pointers. We got some German short hairs.
hmm
Once I started getting old enough to hunt, and just kind of grew up doing that. I haven't had as much time the last handful of years,
hmm
just because of how busy I've been with archery and stuff like that. But I still get out some, and I love doing it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a whole different ball game. I think it's fun just watching the dogs work and kind of do their thing.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I
the awesome
think
part with that. It's just watching the dogs and stuff. I love that.
yeah, like you don't even have to harvest a bird. Just watching the dogs out there working, doing their thing is just rewarding.
Yeah.
So you said you turkey hunt, you pheasant hunt, you've elk, mule deer. Anything else that you've done?
We've chased bears around a little bit.
How has that been? That's another thing on the bucket list.
Yeah, so I haven't hunted bears a ton, um, but that just kind of depends on where you're at and what you're doing. And whether you're hunting with dogs, or whether you're hunting over bait, or whether you're hunting spot and
Hmm.
stock. There's all kinds of different ways to hunt them. And I've done a little. I've never baited bears. I've hunted them spot and stock a little bit, and then my father-in-law actually had a tag that we hunted them with dogs, and that
Hmm.
was cool too. I didn't think that would be near as fun as it was, but just that was the whole thing too. There was just watching the dogs go, and
Hmm.
just like the excitement of the chase on that was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Shooting a bear out of a tree is not all that exciting. It's
Right.
cool to kind of finish the hunt off or whatever, but just watching the dogs and the thrill of the chase it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I could see that at the surface level. The dog hunt doesn't seem fun, but yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there. Kind of correlating to pheasant hunting, just kind of watching the dog work and how
Hmm.
they pull it together and whatnot. Yeah, I think I want to spot and stalk archery bear ideally.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I think it would be a fun time. Yeah, elk is top of the list, then bear, and then obviously there's your other stuff like moose, but the obtainable things, those are kind of top. And then
Yeah.
I'd like to get a mule deer this year. Last year was my first year turkey hunting. I didn't have anyone that really did it growing up. We deer hunted mainly and pheasant,
Oh yeah.
but I didn't have time to go out turkey hunting until the very end of season when they had been pressured the heck, and it was a fun learning experience. I had
Uh-huh.
one shot opportunity and I didn't shoot because it was a bearded hen, and I felt a little wrong doing it during nesting season.
Oh yeah.
Hindsight, probably should have just got my first bird, but it is what it is. So this year I'm back for kind of redemption. We'll see how it goes. I want my first one to be with a bow too. I think I've gun hunted a lot in the past and pretty good shot with a gun, but I think just the whole adrenaline and fun level or like reward is huge with a bow. So I like
Yeah.
the challenge.
Oh yeah, it's so much different. I gun
Hmm.
hunt a lot growing up and that, and anymore, I don't know. A lot of the thrill of gun hunting is gone. If that's the only way I could hunt something, I definitely would still do it. But
Hmm.
if I have any chance to take my bow, I'm definitely taking my bow along because it's just so much more rewarding when you finally get it done, and just so much more like adrenaline and excitement and stuff for me. And the turkeys are hard with the bow, man. Them suckers
Hmm.
catch you so easily. It seems like
Their vision is
getting close
insane.
is hard, but just trying to get drawn back and get a shot off without getting busted
Hmm.
is really tough without like a blind or something like that. And a lot of what
Right.
I do out here is a lot of spot and stock stuff on the turkey, so it's
Hmm.
pretty wild trying to chase those things down. And I'm not
Hmm.
the very best turkey caller. I'll admit that. That's
Me
something.
either.
And the goal last year was to like I've never called in and killed a turkey by just calling him in.
Hmm.
It seems like I always stalk them or something
Hmm.
like that. So that was a goal last year, and then it ended up not working out. We had a really bad winter, um, and then all the birds were just like pushed down into the houses and the private and stuff because there was so
Hmm.
much snow. So I ended up finding one that was up on the mountain, and kind of all bets were off at that point. It was just
Hmm.
go shoot one and get it done rather than trying to call them in. So maybe
Right.
I can do that this year.
Do you mainly hunt public or do you hunt private or a mix of both?
Yeah, pretty much everything I hunt's on public. I don't usually have a whole lot of access to private, so
Hmm.
about everything that I get to hunt is on public.
Right. Well, if you build Iowa points, we'll make something happen for you when you come here if you want.
Okay.
But yeah, do you have any questions for me or for the
No,
audience? Or
no, off the top of my head, not really.
yeah. So when's your next event?
Heading out to the ASA in Foley. I think we leave Wednesday morning. Um, so we'll start up the ASA season down there in Alabama.
There you go. I have some friends from here local heading down there too. So
Oh, cool.
looks like it'll be a fun time for you guys.
Yeah, get away from
After
the doors for a minute.
right after that, is it kind of I guess that ASA seasonal spiral up, right? And then
Mhm.
do you have kind of a pause, or does it go pretty steady
Um,
until?
Not really. We'll have tournaments pretty much all the way from here. Typically, like my season will kind of start up in January, sometimes November, December, depending on the year and
Mhm.
what tournaments we got going on. But it hits real hard in January, and then it'll go through about August. There's kind of tournaments spread all throughout that. It seems like.
Right. And is your turkey season spring or fall? When do you?
So usually we're hunting in the spring. We do have a fall season
Mhm.
here, but it's like a private land only deal.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so they're trying to knock down the ones that come down in the houses in the winter and kind of cause problems and
Mhm.
stuff. Is what they're
Yeah,
trying to do there. But
that makes
yeah, so we
sense.
have an early season that you have to draw, which will usually be in April, and then the general season that you can buy over the
Mhm.
counter is in May.
Okay, yeah, that's generally kind of how our season is, like the April to May.
Hmm.
So you kind of just cram that in between tournaments then?
Yeah, I just try and hunt whenever I'm home. I try and sneak away whenever I can.
Right, makes sense. You see, look at the chat. All right, looking good there. So we touched on kind of a little bit of competitive advice, new hunter advice, some of your memorable hunts, kind of going into your archery season. Do you have a goal for the season? Obviously, win, but is there anything that you
Um,
want to kind of improve on yourself?
I kind of just take it, one tournament at a time or one arrow at a time, and I try and win every event I go to. Um, I try not to be more dedicated to one than another. I try
Hmm.
to put the same effort into every single tournament I go to. Obviously, yeah, I want to win tournaments. Trying to win shoot of the year. I won the shoot of the year at the ASA for the past 2 years, in
Hmm.
the old pro class. So definitely would, like to see if I couldn't try and grab that one again.
Right.
Which is definitely not easy to do right now. But yeah, just kind of the same old as far as that kind of stuff goes.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you this season.
Thanks.
Hopefully, no more lost luggage, right?
Yeah, I had a bad trip there over to Nîmes when they lost my bow.
But you still shot pretty good with a borrowed bow. And I think that's kind of a testament there to how good of a product that is, right?
Yeah, that was a tough one, but yeah, I still ended up qualifying really well actually with a
Hmm.
borrowed bow. So, I was pretty happy to be able to do that when it wasn't my stuff set up for me. Uh, so it was kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. Good shooting so far this year. And it was pretty awesome getting to meet you at the Iowa Pro Am and shoot together.
Yeah, you as well.
Yep. So I think that is pretty well doing it for me. I can give you some time back in your night. And thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, guys. This will go on, everywhere that podcasts are and podcast land. And thank you so much for tuning in. Take care.